What's going on, guys? This is Real Deal Fantasy HQ with your boy LQ. Today's episode, we are doing top trade targets for guys that could possibly help your team out based on the remaining schedule, based on strength of the schedule, meaning they have great matchups, they can help you in the playoffs, they can help you get to the playoffs. Then I have some guys that I'm just not believing the hype in, that I think are worth mentioning, that you should pump the brakes on, not using your waiver wire priority one, or even showing any interest because their matchups going into the playoffs doesn't look great. So that's today's episode, so let's get right into the episode. So we're talking top trade targets, and my first guy I think will be a good target for this week going forward, moving into the playoffs, would be Courtland Sutton. He has the Chargers, he has the Steelers, and he has the Bengals leading up into the playoffs, but in the playoffs his matchups are looking great. He has San Fran, Cleveland, and Oakland in the playoffs. These are great matchups. He could be a playoff gem for you guys. For the people who already have him, and for guys that are looking to trade for him, you don't have to give up the bus for him. He's at a value right now where you're not giving up too much and you'll get a nice return. So playoffs are definitely in the picture, obviously, for the guys that I'm talking to, but Courtland Sutton can be a gem going into the playoffs, and he could just put up big numbers. I really think that he has something special, and his ceiling is high. I'm not going to be, pumping the brakes on Sutton because we know this kid can play. He's talented, so he's definitely taking that wide receiver 2 role, so his target shares and just increased dramatically when Demaryius Thomas left. So I'm definitely looking for Courtland Sutton to contribute to your team going into the playoffs and in the playoffs. He could possibly win you the championship, being that you got him basically for nothing. So with that being said, Courtland Sutton's definitely somebody you need to go target and trade. Do some trade talks. Don't give up too much for him. Don't give up the bus. And if you don't get him, it's fine. And for the people who do have him on the team right now, you guys got a gem, and I'll be definitely looking to start him once playoffs begin. Next up, my guy DJ David Johnson put up big numbers last week, 37 points in PPR formats against the Chiefs. Now before this week, I do believe that he was my #1 top trade target, being that you wouldn't have to give up too much. He was putting up, average numbers. He put up the most points against the Chiefs. 37 points is elite numbers to me, and that's the first time he did it this season, so his price tag just went up. Now, you might have to give up an arm. I'm not saying the bus, but you're going to have to give up something to go get David Johnson. But I'm telling you, David Johnson for the next couple of weeks is going to look like, the veteran retro elite running back that we know, the first rounder that is worth the first pick in the draft. For these next couple of weeks, I think he's going to go off. He can run crazy on these teams that he has. Now, he has Oakland, Chargers, and Green Bay gearing up going into the playoffs. But in the playoffs, people, the 3 games that matter, he has the Lions, he has the Falcons, and he has the Rams. That right there shows me those are 3 teams where he could just run crazy on them and put up elite numbers and bring home the belt, bring home the ring, and the cash prize for all you guys. First round stud may be back putting up those elite numbers for the remaining of the season. It looks like the ceiling is high for him. He's a low-end RB1 for the rest of the season, definitely. But go get David Johnson if you can. He'll be definitely worth the trade. Again, you're going to have to give up something. You might have to give up an arm. I'm not saying an arm and a leg, but he's definitely worth showing interest because those matchups you can't pass up on for a running back. And I know a lot of guys were looking to trade him earlier before he had this big game. So maybe it's still sitting in the back of their head. They want to get rid of him just to get a big return back that they think. But whatever the case may be, he's definitely a top trade target right now in my book. And he'll definitely be promising in the playoffs and bring home the gold. Next up, Michael Crabtree. Based on the remaining games in the season, I think Crabtree can turn it around. He had very below average numbers for the past 2 weeks. 6 points in both games in PPR formats, and the average quarterback in Joe Flacco. It's really like, who do you blame? But while struggling through these weeks, putting up below average numbers, he's still averaging at least 8 targets a game, and he's still leading the team in targets. So with that being said, he'd be a nice little, stash going into the playoffs with the matchups he has. He has the Bengals next week, he has the Raiders, and he has the Falcons. So those three teams are definitely hurting that defense. We just seen the Bengals get annihilated by Drew Brees and company. So therefore, I think Crabtree can have a nice little game. But in the playoffs, he has the Chiefs and he has the Bucks. So definitely a nice little plug and play there based on the matchups. I mean, we all know Crabtree can play. He has a problem dropping passes, but he might be a nice little plug and play for the guys who lost Cooper Kupp for the season. So if you're looking to put in place to where you're missing out like on the Cooper Kupp or whatever, a nice little flex play, Michael Crabtree, based on the remaining of the schedule, the matchups, and him leading the team in targets, I would like Michael Crabtree to step in and help me out to get to that belt, to get to that ring, to get to that cash prize, to bring the gold home. So going to go get Crabtree, I don't think you have to give up too much. You might have to give up, a bottle of air. So a lot of guys are looking down on Crabtree. A lot of guys are just having him ride the bench for next couple of weeks, probably for the remainder of the season. So that's a nice little time to go in, make an offer, make it interesting. Don't go in there and put in something stupid. But Crabtree will definitely be a nice little addition to the team to help you get to the gold. So guys, I am not buying the hype from. I am pumping the brakes on. The first guy definitely will be Derrick Henry. Complete bust. Before this week, everybody's trying to jump on the train of Derrick Henry. Hear me out. Derrick Henry is non-existent in that passing game, and therefore you still have Dion Lewis there who exists in that passing game. And it's very rare that we see Mariota and the Titans putting an ass whooping on the team to where they're in a situation where they're trying to run out the clock. So I need to see this on a week-to-week basis. Like, I keep stressing this. Playoffs is around the corner. I would hate for somebody to go dump all their bus, all their people into Derrick Henry. Look at the weeks before this week. He has been non-existent. His fantasy relevance has been nothing. Like, I'm not buying it. I need to see this week to week. He had 11 carries for 58 yards. What only made him fantasy relevant was the 2 touchdowns. 2 touchdowns. That was it. I mean, he's the goal line back, but that offense needs to be clicking on all cylinders. Mariota needs to be playing A game. He needs to be getting passes out. Even Corey Davis, I'm pumping the brakes on. I'm not too confident in the Titans offense going into the playoffs. So with that being said, it's just pump the brakes on Derrick Henry. Don't buy into the hype. Just wait and see. I'm not jumping on the Derrick Henry bus just yet. This next guy, I love the game that he's playing right now. And Baker Mayfield, he looks really good under center with his new offensive coordinator, but I am not buying the hype. Just a couple weeks ago, he was owned in less than 50% of leagues. He's now somehow lost 3% after, this big win over the Falcons. 3 touchdowns, only 3 incompletions, which is great numbers for Baker and that offense. But I'm not buying the hype. I'm not going to go jump off waiver and go get Baker Mayfield and start him over, whoever quarterback you got right now. I'm not even going to do that. I'm not even going to talk crazy like that. But I see a lot of guys off of waivers, just me personally in leagues that I'm in, seeing them jumping on the Baker Mayfield wave trying to help them out in playoffs because they got, a Joe Flacco or Andy Dalton as their freaking quarterback. So pump the brakes. I like that this new offensive coordinator has him comfortable in that offense, but I'm just not too really sold yet on Baker Mayfield helping me go into the playoffs or help me in the playoffs. So maybe next year with this experience under his belt where, Baker Mayfield may be some type of fantasy relevant. But I'm not buying the hype. I'm not jumping on the Baker wave just yet fantasy-wise. I want Baker to win. I want the Browns to win. Like, it's kind of sad, all these years they haven't achieved nothing. So I'm really glad that the Browns possibly found their quarterback. They found their guy. So it'll be good to see next year Baker being fantasy relevant. So that wraps up another great episode of Real Deal Fantasy HQ. I want you guys to leave a comment below on what you guys think about my top trade targets. If there's any guys that I possibly left out that have a nice little schedule going into the playoffs, leave a comment below and let me know, and I'll let you know what I think. And what do you guys think about my pump the brakes and don't buy the hype guys? So I'll see you guys next week for another great episode of Real Deal Fantasy HQ. Peace.